you understand that until you expose your brother and explain what he did, that he went behind everybody's back, that he hired a hitman to murder your ex-husband, you'll remain guilty in the eyes of the world.
I can't speak to the eyes of the world. I can only know that I have done nothing wrong.
And oddly enough, at least in the court's eyes, they've not been able to prove that she has done anything wrong. But that story continues to unfold. Today, we're going to talk about Wendi Adelson's testimony in the previous trial against her brother Charlie's ex-girlfriend, Katherine. If I had only known then what I know now, but that literally is the theme of my life. Y'all, I want to thank PDS Debt for teaming up with me on this video, and I want to tell y'all about them and how they can help you out. So for the last couple of years, I've been doing a major remodel on the house, fixing things up, getting it back up to par, and this has cost a lot of money, time, sweat, and tears. And it has also caused me to go into a lot of debt.
Wait, Dad, is the sofa getting repossessed?
He worries himself to death. Not yet, at least. So here's the thing, when PDS teamed up with me and I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, if I had known about a situation like this, I could have done A, B, or C instead of doing D, E, or F back then. But it's water under the bridge, but that's why I wanted to come to y'all to talk to you about it. So PDS Debt has lots of options for people struggling with not only just credit card debt. That was the issue that I had when I was doing the remodel. It can be personal loans, collections, medical bills. The issue that I had run into was I had so many different cards with so many different minimum payments, I was drowning in it. So like me, if you're in that situation where it's like, look, you're trying to do these payments, but you can't get ahead, then something like this is going to be a program for you to look into. So PDS rolls all of your monthly payments into one low interest free monthly payment. So of course, obviously you're saving thousands in interest and fees and whatnot, but you can pay stuff off in like a fraction of the time, okay? Now this is eligible for people with over $10,000 in debt. There's no minimum credit score, and bad and fair credit are accepted. And the one thing that I have always found with debt and any of that, or just money in general, is it's easy to get into debt and it's hard to get out of it, okay? So when I was doing the remodel, it just got out of control. It was like, I gotta replace the toilet, but by doing that, you realize, oh, the floor is rotted out. We've got to replace the floor. And oh, now the shower is rotted out. And it just snowballed. Now, I will admit there was some things thrown in there that, well, maybe I didn't quite need.
Wait, stop, Dad. No. Those were necessities, Dad. Those were necessities. We can't get those out.
You know, we just got to do what we got to do sometimes. PDS Debt is offering a free debt analysis. It only takes 30 seconds. Head over to pdsdebt.com/sofa to get your free debt assessment today. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's back there. Roscoe's on top of it, and my name's Paul. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the sofa. Okay, so y'all, we are continuing on our, whatever you want to call it, our viewing of Wendi Adelson's testimony and all parts of her and the trial. And I want to say like against her brother, but it's so many other people as well. We've started at the most recent trial, which was the one against her brother. He was convicted in that. Now we are going to be looking at some of her testimony from another trial, and this was against Charlie's ex-girlfriend, Katherine. And we'll go over that in our little 60-second overview that we do of the cases before we get into it. Now, before we do get into any of it, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the old Instas, on the old Grams, on the Instagram as the kids like to call it. Go on, click it, it's on the screen. You can follow us there. There's some extra stuff over there you might like, you might enjoy, you might not. Anyways, now the way we are going to do this is, like I said, in a second, I'm going to do that little 60-second overview so we're all on the same page. And then we're going to be reviewing some clips from her testimony. And I'm just going to make commentary and that type of thing. Now remember, keep in mind, I ain't no professional. I'm not licensed. I'm not clinical. I'm not, certified, credentialed up in here, okay? Unless you get certified in SOFA, then I'm full-fledged certified, okay? So this is just my opinions, y'all. That's all it is. It's literally just me making commentary on this with my opinions. So please keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, Wendi, at the time of this recording and video, which it is December 4th, 2023, my birthday, woohoo! no. She has not been charged formally. She has not been found guilty of anything. So just keep that in mind. And with that being said, let's go on and, well, dive in. So let's go ahead and talk about that little overview. Recently, Charlie Adelson was found guilty in the 2014 murder of his then brother-in-law, Dan Markel. Now, Dan was married to Charles' sister, Wendi. That's who we're going to be reviewing today. And now, again, at the time of this video, she's not been charged or found guilty of anything. Now, Wendi and Charles' mother, Donna, was recently arrested while trying to flee the country. She's going to be awaiting trial or, whatever comes up with her case. This also is in relation to the same charges that Charlie just went to prison for. So the testimony that we're looking at today is from Katherine Magbanua's trial. Now, she was the then girlfriend of Charlie Adelson. She was convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder. Now, she was like the go-between, allegedly, between Charlie and the hitman that actually took Dan Markel's life. Now, she did testify in the most recent trial. She was like, yeah, that was Charlie's idea. Sorry to say, but that's how it was. Obviously, it did not bode well for him. We see that he got convicted. Now, one reason I wanted to continue looking at this is, number one, we're all kind of waiting to see if Wendi's ever going to be charged with anything, right? But also, I find it very fascinating, the situation, the circumstance, the context of it. Because basically, all of her family is going down for this crime, except for her. Now, remember, she is an attorney. Dan Markel was an attorney. So seeing her go toe-to-toe, head-to-head with other attorneys on the stand that gets heated is very, legally fascinating to me, because she really knows how to be on the stand, in my opinion, at least. Now, again, like I said, it's not like I study law or anything like that, but just as an onlooker, I'm like, wow, she's really good at, maneuvering her way around certain things, and dotting her I's and crossing her T's on some things. So, that being said, we're going to be specifically watching some stuff today that gets very heated, and I'll bring up in the commentary the things I want to look at and talk about and whatnot. So now let's finally get to that first clip.
This is all about you, right?
I was called to be a witness and I'm testifying, so I don't understand the question. Is it a question?
There's about 100 people in this courtroom, right?
There are people in the courtroom.
Possibly thousands watching, right?
I have no idea who's watching.
Okay, so coming in hot, right? So right off the bat, this is what I'm talking about. First of all, you see just his tactic with her. This is all your fault that we're here, and that type of thing. No holds bar with this guy, right? Okay, so then notice right off the bat with her, yes, there's a lot of people in the courtroom. She's just going to be very generic, very boom, 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 boom. The legal positioning and the strategy and all that type of stuff that has gone on in this is what really makes me be Now, again, I'll say this 100 times in this video. It's just literally my opinion when it comes down to, do I think she has something to do or not, whatever. And we'll talk more in depth about that along the way. Along the way, but at the end of the video. But, I find it very hard that she would know nothing of this with all the details that have come out, right, in court. So the way that she's very good at just answering questions, but also coming at him, I don't understand. What's the question, that type thing. But again, to be fair on both sides, regardless if she's a lawyer or not, go down the pathway of this. There's two ways to look at this as we review it. Her family just did everything and kept her out of the loop, so technically she doesn't know, wink, wink, kind of a thing. Or she knew and was helping plot stuff out, right? That type thing. Now, according to testimony from her ex, she did. So, again, it's who believes who. But any normal person going up on the stand that is trying to remain innocent and claim their innocence, whether they're guilty or not, is going to want to employ these strategies, right? So it's not just specific to her, okay, is what I'm getting at. And if she is innocent, well, of course she would do legal strategy because she doesn't want to go to prison for something she didn't do or have anything to do with. If she did have something to do with it, well, no brainer, she doesn't want to go to prison, right? You know what I'm saying? So of course she's going to do legal strategy to try and avoid it. And it just behooves her and benefits her that she's already an attorney.
You disagree that your ex-husband is dead because of your family?
Yes, I disagree.
Can't roll my eyes hard enough. Go on, drink from the cup if you haven't poured yours yet. Again, it's so weird watching this, knowing what we know now, right? It's okay, well, you might disagree, but the court found that that was not correct.
These jurors are here for weeks doing their civic duty because of your marriage, right?
No.
And very quickly with that, I mean, he is just so, like, in on her, right? Like, he has zero patience for her. They're here because of your marriage. And I mean, honestly, it comes down to that. And I mean, I would add up, but he's already said this, with her family. Her family was so involved, okay? Like, so involved in her life. I'm just like, imagine what it was like being a teenager in that family. You know what I'm saying? I mean, these are grown adults and whatnot, and like this obsession to get her and the kids down to South Florida that obviously led to them being willing to take Dan's life.
And it was a whirlwind romance, right? Right?
It was not a whirlwind romance, no.
It led to a wedding, February 26th of 2006. You had a big wedding in Boca Raton, right?
Did we get married on February 26, 2006? Is that the question? Yes.
In Boca Raton.
In Boca Raton, Florida.
I mean, this is what I'm talking about. First of all, you hear him, this, fairy tale wedding, this a whirlwind romance. It was not a whirlwind romance. All of that she reduces it down to, are you asking, did we get married on February 26th in Boca? And literally, that's it. It's like, I just find it interesting how good she is at that. But again, she's just dwindling down his, the meat down to the bone of like, this is the question. Is this the day we got married? Because all the other stuff is opinion, which technically it is, I mean, who's to say, oh, it's a whirlwind, a wedding, a romance or whatever, right? That's just, it is what it is. And I understand he's trying to be dramatic and all that type of stuff. And for all due reason, I mean, Dan literally lost his life for zero reason, okay? Because of the absolute selfishness and greediness of this family.
All right. In this marriage, it led to 2 children, right? Your 2 boys.
Are you asking me if I have 2 boys?
Yes.
Yes.
Again, very quickly, this marriage led to 2 boys. Are you asking me if I have 2 boys? I mean, she's just so, she's directing the questioning almost. But he's very smooth. And listen to him as we go. He's such an excellent, questioner or whatever you call it. And the way that he'll go, and when he hits a little something, he'll serve it over here. But then also when he'll say, he knows how to drop nuggets to create an emotional reaction, whether it be from her or the jury. Pay attention to the way that he'll do things and say things along the way, because even if it's like he knows something's not going to go a certain way, it's almost like he'll ask it to just get her to almost show a side of herself, or possibly give an answer, or just put it out there for the jury to hear, to ring the bell, so to speak. And then he'll redirect, and a lot of times he'll do it, be like, well, we're going off track now, let's go over here, but he just has this very steadfast way of doing it, because you have to be, in my opinion, pretty seasoned to go toe to toe with her, just because, I mean, she's been working on the story for years.
Those boys were his world, right?
As well as his work, yes.
Now, this right here is the little nuggets of truth, okay? Those boys were his world, and so is his work. So, again, I'm not in her shoes. I'm not in this situation. Because my first thought was, even if I felt that, I wouldn't have said it on the stand. That to me shows this animosity. That to me shows I'm still angry. That to me shows there's still an emotion there over it. Dan his life has been taken violently and tragically. This is the father of your children, right? Let's take out the question if she had anything to do with it or not. So you're on the stand and he's talking about those were his life. Even if it wasn't, even if the guy is not lying and Dan was like obsessed with work and neglecting his family, why would you say that on the stand in front of most likely his family in this type trial? You know what I mean? Like, at least give that to him, in his afterlife. You know what I'm saying? So that to me is like where the nuggets of true feeling come out. Notice too, if you watch the most recent trial, how, and she'll do it in this one too, but especially I'm thinking of a couple of key moments in the most recent one where she'll be like, we were on the phone that morning trying to decide what kindergarten so-and-so was going to. And she'll throw these little nuggets out and it's almost like trying to create this like, oh, things were hunky-dory. Now she does admit that they weren't hunky-dory all the time. And that, it kind of had these ebbs and flows, which is any relationship. But it just strikes me as odd, as you will hear her say these things throughout, the little, again, nuggets of truth that come out in between the lines of what she's saying.
So you had people that strictly keep kosher eating non-kosher food, which is a big deal.
That actually is not what happened. You had, Danny was upset that it was kosher style and not strictly adhering to kosher law. So he was disappointed.
So there's problems right from the beginning.
That was a problem at our wedding, yeah.
Okay. Couple of things about this clip. First of all, he's trying to bring up there are some issues from the very beginning with his marriage and talking about how strict Danny is and whatnot. Okay, so go back and remember that the mother threw out the idea of trying to blackmail or threaten Dan with having the children baptized into, I forget what it was, but like to fit into the Bible Belt culture, as she called it. So like to baptize them as Christian or whatever she was wanted to do, as like a threat or whatever. So if Dan is like really, really strict in his religion, and then that was going to be something that they did, and I don't know, I can't remember right now off the top of my head without digging through notes if that's what they, if they actually went through with it or not. But it's evidence that the mother suggested this threat. She suggested lots of things. I mean, come on. I mean, this is what we're talking about here, okay? Now again, I will give Wendi this much. Let's go back to that wedding day, which she's talking about right here. If you're dealing with parents, and and I haven't heard too much from the father, but mostly about the mother coming up with these threats and stuff like that. But regardless, parents that are going to be in your life to that degree, you're going to be dealing with some stuff. You know what I'm saying? So even before they got to that, I have no doubt that her mother was probably like the meddling type, even though she says she really wasn't and whatnot. I mean, you can just see where it's like, girl, I think she had her hands all up in your life, and this would cause friction with any kind of relationship.
I really don't remember.
But you do remember dropping the bomb on him, don't you? Telling him that you wanted a divorce.
So I did not drop a bomb on him. We'd been in therapy for several months beforehand where I told him several times I wanted a divorce.
Okay, so this is talking about when she dropped the bomb. The way he said it was a little bit cheesy, I'm not gonna lie. When he's like, but you dropped the bomb on him. Dun dun dun. Like I was waiting for some background noise. And Wendy's like, in her clinical, I did not technically drop the bomb as you speak. It's just kind of like a little bit amusing to listen to. So, she waited, he's gone out of town, she drops the bomb, whatever. Now, again, looking at both sides of it, you see this take place sometimes where a person will wait till the other person is out of town and whatnot. We don't know why that happens. We don't know if there's if it's a cowardly thing, a fearful thing, and I'm not even talking specifically with this case because, I wasn't there. I don't know them as a couple. I don't know them behind closed doors. I personally would not want to go out of town and find out while out of town to get a call of basically like, I'm leaving you. I think that would suck, but, people got to do what they got to do, apparently. We've already been in the heated up parts of the conversation, but it's getting more heated, as you can see. And again, you kind of hear the theatrics coming from the attorney doing the questioning, and then you hear Wendi just still steadfast with, I did not drop a bomb, her little way that she has about it. So anyways, let's keep going.
His boys were not gone. He saw them the next day, and they would not have been awake if he's coming home at 11 p.m.
Let's stay on topic here.
When he
walks in the door.
So all I wanted to do with that right there is just show the little part of, again, where he's like, okay, let's stay on topic here. And she's like, I am on topic. And now for this specific clip here, really she hadn't gone too far off topic. So it was funny to me when I listened to her how he said that, because it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I thought she was answering the question here. And he kind of reels it back in. But it's this tactic that he has with her. Like, he knows how to really ruffle her feathers. And honestly, I'm here for it.
He may have seen him the next day, but you did not let him know where you were going to be staying with his boys.
With our boys? Yes.
Again, with our boys? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, she's just, you can tell, she's just going toe-to-toe with this guy. But again, I think in a case like this, because we'll hear as it gets a little bit deeper in, and I can't remember her name, but she's the female prosecutor. She was in Charlie's trial as well. When she gets up here and kind of clarifies some of these answers, and you see where a lot of Wendi's answers and her family's try and go on these, and their defense and all this type of stuff, goes on these major technicalities, like, well, technically, kind of a thing, and it's like, but let's look at the context. And the context makes y'all look really shady. But yes, technically it is just blank. Kind of a thing. And so I think you do have to rough them up a little bit because they know how to play the game.
Let's talk about your brother's jokes now. You don't deny that he joked about hiring a hitman.
He did.
You don't deny that he repeated this joke.
He did.
And he made this joke right before a hitman Professor Markel.
I don't know that to be true.
Okay. He made the joke right before and I'll leave out the hitman part, Professor Markel was killed.
He made the joke the morning that I talked to him.
Can you think of one person in this world that would actually hire two people to go kill Professor Markel other than your family?
Okay, this part right here. I love when prosecutors, when attorneys kind of just speak to somebody almost like in our inside head voice, like, can you tell me just name a person other than your family who would have done this? Just name somebody, right? You know, and they just want to play so dumb, which again, I get it. It's the game. They don't want to go to prison, you know, so there's that. Now, this whole thing about the joking of the hitman thing, I mean, this has followed him from trial to trial to trial. If you haven't watched it, you know, a TV repairman comes over, she even speaks to him and he'll testify about this joke being made and, oh, you know, it's cheaper than hiring a hitman, so he got me a TV. Type thing. And so again, it's like, number one, who jokes like that? And even if it's in jest, who jokes like that? And why would you say that to outside strangers? Oh yeah, my brother always says this. Why even speak that way? Even if you're going through a divorce, like, so for me, and I'm sitting here thinking too, I'm like, well, maybe it's because I'm going off on one of my sofa thoughts. Maybe it's because like we are involved in true crime. We see this type stuff. So it's like, well, we know better, because I'm thinking this, if you're going through a tumultuous divorce, the last thing I would ever do is make a joke about a hitman. You know what I mean? Even if you're thinking in your head, like, man, life would be easier if we just got a hitman, you shouldn't ever say it, because my God, look at what happens. You know what I'm saying? And so now, mind you, I mean, I think they have clearly, obviously all had something to do with it. I mean, we'll get to the Wendi part, but the other ones are all getting taken out left and right. So just joking around like that, it's the entitlement for me, you know, to be able to think that you can joke and do this and then actually carry it out and get away with it.
Ms. Adelson, please address me and answer the question.
It calls for an unbelievable amount of speculation. I mean, I'm responsible for coming up with, that's the prosecutor's duty, no? To figure out who's responsible.
Woo! Okay. Shots were fired, and she went right back. She's like, that's the prosecutor's duty, right? To come up with that? And this was in response to the clip we just watched. Okay, there's just a continuation of it. And I mean, technically, she's right. You know, this is what I'm talking about with her that's so fascinating, is she knows how to, for the most part, remain very calm and neutral. She's very in control of her emotions, which in one part is good, but another part, it's also kind of unsettling how in control she is of them. Because it's just like, you know, girl, hello, is anything back there, you know, behind those eyes?
There's information about this case everywhere. You'd agree with me on that, right?
I've been advised by my lawyer not to read it.
All right. Now, we're not talking about reading stuff. There's podcasts.
Also not to listen.
TV shows.
Also not to watch.
Articles.
Don't read.
And so
they could have made up a little song. I mean, they were just dancing with each other. To the podcast, don't listen. TV, don't watch. I was like, I mean, do y'all just want to spit some more rhymes out at us? But again, this is what I'm talking about. She knows exactly what to say. Nope, was told not to do that. I'm trying to think, if I was her, would I want to listen to that stuff? I mean, probably not. But I mean, there would be another side of me that if you knew that your family, if you knew what was going on, you'd be listening to every last bit of it so you could form your story. Like, really know what's out there, like what people are digging up. So I could imagine her having some kind of like secret phone that they couldn't trace to her. You know what I'm saying? So at nighttime she could like curl up under the covers and be listening to a podcast and be like, what have they found out about us?
How can you say you love those boys if you don't care who killed the father that they loved?
Of course I care who killed the father that they loved.
Then why won't you look at the stuff?
I've been advised not to.
Are you afraid that when you look at it, you're going to realize that your brother did this?
I am not afraid of that.
I mean, he's going for the jugular. He's going for the jugular on here. Yeah, and you know she tried to do that, or at least to me it sounded like, where she was like, they killed the father boys. You know, kind of thing, like she cracked a little bit there, and it was like, she's trying to decide, like, do I need to muster up a little something here? Or do I just need to keep going? Because there's a couple of times where she'll try and, like, choke up a little bit, and I'm like, girl, we're past that, honey. Like, we're way past that, okay? We're not even expecting it out of you at this point. You know, we're not even expecting it. This is just a matter of seeing how good you are at telling the story. You know what I mean? Like, we're past wanting to see tears and all that type of stuff. Like, way beyond that.
You understand that until you expose your brother what he did, that everybody's going to consider you as guilty. You understand that, right?
What is the question that you're asking me?
Okay, this is prime example right here. What's the question that you're asking me? You know, and again, what do you say to that? Because it's true. Until you expose them, everybody thinks you're guilty. Because here's the thing. She might be walking free. And I don't know if I have the clip in here, but she'll say it where it's like, they talk about her last name. It might even come up next. Where she's talking about her last name and how it's prevented her from getting jobs and stuff like that. Now, obviously this is older. We know she's working now. I think she says she's doing asylum work or something like that. I'm going to hold my comments on that. I was just like, girl, really? Okay. I'm not sure. I'm getting American Horror Story, okay? That's what I'm envisioning over this. But, I mean, it's true. It's like people are going to think that you did this. And they do. You know, I mean, that's the thing. The public perception, it ain't good.
Katherine Magbanua was there, and your brother Charles Adelson, and you all ate outside, right?
We did.
And that's on Miami Beach, not in Fort Lauderdale.
Correct.
Now, just for context, Jeffrey Lacasse, he was also an FSU professor, not at the law school, but an FSU professor. Nice guy, right?
I don't think so now.
Now, you deny, I'm assuming, that on July 13, 2014, you told Jeffrey Lacasse that Charles looked into hiring a hitman. You deny that, or you admit that?
I deny that.
And that you told him that Charles looked into hiring a hitman back in September of 2013.
That never happened.
Which would have been months before your brother even met Katherine Magbanua.
I mean, here's the thing. Honestly, when the lawyer here paused, when she was like, well, I don't think he's really nice anymore, and she's talking about her ex, he paused for a second because I felt like, this is what I was thinking, and I felt like, in my mind, I'm projecting it on him. I was like, he's lucky he's alive. I mean, honestly. And I'm like, I think the lawyer's probably getting ready to say that. That's the best thing he could have done is run screaming from this. I mean, you see how it ended for Dan. You know what I mean? It's just like, can you imagine how you would date after this? You take everything out. Pretend that they can 100% prove like we can somehow rewind life with like bird's eye cameras on people's things. And we're like, yep, actually Wendi had nothing to do with that. Okay, so then it's like a little bit more understandable, but it's like, yeah. Not going to the family reunion, although I guess at this point it would be held at a prison. You know what I mean? Like, no. So the fact that she was able to get another dude, another lawyer, shocking. And then for him to come up with this, well, she said he was looking for a hitman. And that's the thing, like, to me, I'm like, why? Yeah, I mean, come on, this family's so entitled. You're trying to tell me that you knew nothing about this, and she wouldn't let this slip to somebody who she's seeing.
Let's jump off topic right now and talk about your boys' names. That in the time after the you changed their last names from Markel to Adelson, right?
A year later, yes.
Why?
I was scared
Of what?
of someone coming to attack them.
So it's a year later, you won't look at anything because you don't want to know what's going on in the case. And the thought is, well, they're going to be protected if they have my last name and not Markel, right?
Yes.
Now, years later, arrests are made. It's clear who committed the murder, Sigfredo Garcia Luis Rivera. The Adelson name has been dragged through the mud. Why haven't you continued to protect your boys and changed the name back?
I will be changing I'm not going to change the name back. I don't think that will help. One day I'll change all of our names.
I mean, ate and left no crumbs, as the kids say. I mean, aim into that. I mean, it's so true. It's just like, okay, so you don't listen to, well, we're getting to that in a second because he starts to touch on it here. There's all this stuff out there that you don't listen to. So you're protecting their names. And this one, she says, I thought they were going to be attacked. But in the most recent trial, she says something like that to the effect of, I wanted to kind of protect their identities because like their whole Markel thing was out there and sending them off to school. And take the context of this out, say it was a different person, like another case that we're watching or going over that we're not questioning if the person's guilty or not, or had something to do with it. I completely understand being like, ugh, my kid's last name is this like really publicized name. Maybe I should switch it to this to kind of whatever. But in this, Adelson is now, I mean, it's kind of like, it's side by side with Markel Adelson, and especially now where Charlie's gone off to prison, Donna Adelson, her, all this stuff, it's becoming more known. So it's just like, well, are you still protecting them? Now, again, if you look at Wendy's side, where it's like, okay, well, either of those names is tainted at this point, so we need to completely come up with a different last name. Well, then why haven't you? I go back and forth with it, but his logic presenting to her makes complete sense to me of, well, why wouldn't you change it back? Why wouldn't you change? I mean, because at this point, Dan Markel is the victim. I would just think you would want to honor your father, and especially as they get older. Now, again, I'm not trying to say it's their choice, but for her, it just seems like she tried to erase Dan completely, literally and figuratively.
The government asked you about immunity, so let's get into that. You explained that as an attorney, you understand that when the government gives a subpoena for somebody to testify, that it conveys immunity, right?
That's my understanding. My knowledge of criminal law dates back to 2003 when I took a semester in law school, so forgive me.
Graduated law school, right?
This isn't my area of law.
When you clerked on the 11th Circuit, it was with Judge Jordan, right?
I did immigration appeals.
Yeah, but you still dealt with criminal stuff as well, too.
Very little.
So your understanding, though, is it doesn't mean they can't arrest you. They just can't use what you say here against you later on. So you're protected.
Correct.
And you needed that to testify, right?
It's just given to testify. It's not a question of whether I needed it. It comes with testifying.
You fear being charged by them, so you need to have that protection of your words.
I don't fear being charged for a crime I didn't commit, no.
Now, y'all had this nice exchange where it was...
Okay, now, a couple of things real quick. First of all, notice towards the end, he did the thing I'm talking about, where he's like, you fear being charged by them, so that's why you wanted the whatever. And she's like, I didn't fear that. And then he just kind of very gently moves along. He did his little tongue lashing, and now we're going to move along here. He put it out there for everybody to hear and goes on. Now, again, this is one of those technicality type things, because when they get in, it might be the next clip we listen to, where it's talking about, like, has your family come forward and talked about, no, they haven't been asked, and this and that. And again, it's like, well, if no one's involved, why wouldn't y'all want to help find who did this? Now, granted, at this point, we know people have been convicted, right? So, I mean, I understand that. Talking about this case, there's two different levels of it. There's what's going on right now, and meaning like, at this time of the thing. So I know this was like a year or so ago, whatever. But then the actual crime years before, where it's like, well, no convictions, no arrests were made. Why aren't people being more helpful? Why is there this clamming up? That type thing.
There's actually tension between you and this office, right?
No.
They recently had your brother, Charles Adelson, arrested, and he's in custody, right?
Correct.
For first-degree murder.
Correct.
And there's no tension?
It's very uncomfortable to be here. It's hard to tell where the tension is coming from.
They've discussed your involvement in this case. They insinuated it on the direct examination. There's no tension?
Lots of media insinuates that I did something I didn't do too. I can't feel tension towards every person in the world.
That's funny. I thought you didn't look at anything.
I don't. That's why.
But you know that you know about the media, but you don't know about the media?
I know about the media because it keeps me from employment. It keeps me from lots of things in my life. I'm aware of what's there, but I don't read the minutia so I can sleep at night.
Ms. Adelson, 5 minutes ago you said you don't look at any of that stuff. Now I ask you a question. Let me finish.
Sure.
5 minutes ago you say you don't look at any of that stuff. Now I ask you a question, you say you look at stuff.
That's not actually what I said. I said I'm aware that it exists, but I don't read it. I don't listen to it.
Then how do you know that they're bashing you?
You just told me they are.
Okay, y'all, this is what I am talking about right here. I mean, they are just back and forth. 5 minutes ago, I said this, but you said this. Well, actually, I didn't say that. Well, how do you know? Because you told me. I mean, she is quick, okay? I mean, quick. And there's two versions of it. They're both getting very technical here, because here's the thing. Pretend that you are, even if you're like, you know how some celebrities, you'll hear them talking, they're like, I don't read my comment section, I don't read the tablet, whatever, but you know it's there, and you know a general consensus that it ain't good. So this could be the same thing with Wendi, where she knows all the stuff's out there about her and she knows it's not good, but she's not going to consume it. And then there's the other thing of, like I talked about earlier, where like she's under the covers, like, what did they say about me this week? That type thing. So, but him catching her like that and being that quick on it, like, well, you just said this, so what about that? Well, why don't you, I mean, there's animosity here. There's a weird, I mean, we're accusing you of this, right? I mean, this is what's happening. Or, they're accusing you of this. the office, whatever. I mean, that part right there, but it just fascinates me how fast she is. Now, here's the thing. If I was up there on the stand like that, and again, this is just me, and they were like, well, I just asked you this and you said that. And she's like, I didn't really say that. I would have already forgotten what I said 10 seconds earlier. I would have been like, can you rewind the tape? I would have been like, I don't know what I said. I would have been like, I need the transcripts from when, like 6 weeks ago, like 5 seconds ago, so I know what I said. I'm lucky to remember my name these days, let alone what I said on the stand 10 seconds ago, to be confident enough to be like, I said it in this way.
I did?
Yeah.
How about this? We'll come back to it. You can think up a better answer, okay?
I'm not thinking up an answer. I'm telling you the truth. I'm sorry if you don't want to listen to it.
Your basic understanding of criminal law, though, you know that if the defense gives you a subpoena, you get no immunity.
Correct.
Question, improper question.
I'm not going beyond that question.
All right, that's the only question you can ask on that.
If I give you a subpoena, you don't get immunity, right?
Correct.
Now, let's talk about your parents. The government asked you about your mother and father, Donna and Harvey, right? The government could do the same and subpoena them so that this jury can watch them get questioned, not nicely how Ms. Kappelman questioned you, but to be cross-examined by me.
Objection, improper question.
I'm going to sustain that. Ask a different question.
Are your parents here in Tallahassee right now?
No.
Are they back in Miami?
Yes.
Do they have any plans of coming here this week or next?
I don't think so.
Woo! So you hear him saying, like, look, if I subpoena you, you're not going to get this, immunity or whatever, like you have. Now, in the very beginning there, where they go, like, I'm going to give you time to think up another answer. I'm not thinking stuff up. But I mean, it's like, look, y'all need to take this out back. I mean, seriously. But again, bringing up all these things because, at this point, we know his client was found guilty, right? She's, in prison for the rest of her life. So there's that. But regardless, I mean, it's just cutthroat up there. And that's the thing. A lot of times it takes us, and a lot of times you will see this. I don't want to say just with defense attorneys, it depends, but oftentimes you will see this in that way where they do have to be dramatic. They do have to be cutthroat. And especially, like I've said before, with someone like Wendi, you've got to be on your toes because she's good. Okay, she just comes right back at things. We'll talk about this at the end of the video because one thing that I find fascinating to watch her is, where is the question? Did she know something? Did she really know something? Because she speaks with this confidence that's either, I know for a fact that I don't technically know something, or I know for a fact that there's no way they have evidence that shows that I do.
You got no problem letting them see your brother Charles, right?
I'm sorry?
You have no problem letting them hang out with your brother Charles, who's now sitting in custody for first-degree murder.
Well, they can't see him now, can they?
No, they can't, but I'll ask the questions. For years, they weren't able to see their grandchildren despite their pleading to you to see them. But you let me finish, but you let them hang out with your brother, right?
The children were permitted to see their grandparents. I cooked for them. We had play dates. They had sleepovers. When a letter surfaced that they were trying to have my children placed in foster care, the visits stopped. My brother never threatened to put my children in foster care, and if he had, the visits would have stopped with him too.
Whoa! Okay, y'all. Okay, first of all, remember this. The thing about foster care, we're going to listen to a clip in a minute when the state gets up there and questions her and clarifies this. And this is what I'm talking about. It's a prime example of how the dramatic, like, this was done, but then when you get the context, it's like, girl, sit down. Now, this part right here, he called it out. You're not going to let them around your grandparents, but you'll let them around your brother. Come on. You know what I'm saying? And it's true. Now, mind you, do I think that Charlie would harm the kids? Well, you don't know, actually. You know what I mean? Because what happens if something got in the way? Clearly, Dan got in the way of their plans and they were willing to do whatever. When somebody's willing to take somebody else's life, all bets are off as to who else they're willing to do that to. Also, side note, when he was like, let me finish, he's like, I'll ask the questions in this trailer.
That you characterized as the grandparents threatening to put the children into foster care. Is that an email that was sent from the Markels to my office?
Yes.
Okay. And that was in reference to, in the event that you and the people that care for these children, who at the time were very young, were arrested, that the grandparents wanted to make sure, because they live in Canada, right?
They do.
They wanted to make sure that a specific organization could be contacted to care for the children, so that someone was there to care for them until a relative could get there.
I don't
Right?
remember the bit about a relative getting there.
Okay, well, they weren't just going to leave them in foster care, right?
I don't know.
This is what I'm talking about. They're just going to leave them in foster care. Clearly, what they're trying to do is say, if they're arrested, we want them to go here till we can get there and a relative can come pick them up. This is what's going on. But she's trying to get all technical. Well, I don't know. They might have just left them out on the street to wither away and die. Girl, no. And that's what makes me not trust her. I mean, other things, right? But it's these little things that chip away at their statements and their actions like this that I'm like, this is not good.
In this case, you were asked about, why aren't your parents coming to testify? You, as you mentioned, gave a police interview in this case, right?
Correct.
And consented to the search of your phone, etc. You gave testimony in this case, right?
Yes.
All right. And your parents did not, correct?
They did not give testimony.
They have not testified. They
They've
have
not been
given a
asked to
police...
come testify, but they would if they were asked.
Okay. And have they given any police interviews?
They would have, but the police never contacted them.
The police did contact them, didn't they? And they refused.
No,
Are they represented by counsel?
they are represented by counsel.
And they'll come testify if we want them to.
If they are under state subpoena, just like I was, they would come testify.
All right.
Notice the very end. If they're under state subpoena, just like I was, then they'll come testify. Okay, so let's talk about just some final thoughts on all this. First of all, the question, do I think she has something to do with it or not? Okay, so it's complicated. This is my thing. I find it very hard to believe she would not know anything that took place with this case. She would have had conversations. She would have known something, even as simple as this. Wendi, don't ask questions. We're not going to tell you the details, but you need to be gone from your house at this time. Or you don't need to go over to Dan's house on this day or something. The fact that she's got the Jeff guy coming up, well, she said that he talked about looking for a hitman during this time. And, oh, well, my family would be here if they were subpoenaed. I mean, basically that's what it is. We're not going to volunteer anything. You need to make us come, kind of a situation. Now, again, it's like, well, if y'all had nothing to do with this, especially before everybody was being accused, why not help? That's my take on it. So that's my thing with Wendi, is I just find it very hard to believe that she wouldn't have had anything to do with it. Now, maybe the family was very good at keeping her out in the dark. Because if you listen to other things in the way she talks, where she's like, no, I don't know about the business. I don't know how much money they had. It sounds like it was more of Charlie. Now, I don't know about the other brother, Robert, if he has something to do with it, or if this comes down to like a male, female, brother, sister type thing of like, no, well, your brother is going to be more involved in the family business. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know the dynamics of their family, if that's how it was, where she was kind of left out in that way. And so if it was that case and they were more like, look, Wendi, you just, you go do your law school thing, you do all that, we're going to handle this damn problem for you. I don't know if that's how they operated, but it seems like it could be that. But again, I find it very difficult to believe that she would know zero about this, especially now how much she is able to skirt around certain things and be very just manipulative with her answers and information that she gives out. That being said, it speaks volumes to me that they apprehended the mother and the father, but the mother, who is facing charges now on their way to Vietnam. Okay. The fact that Wendi has not budged from her innocence, has not tried to flee, has not tried to do anything, is still steadfast of, I didn't do this. I don't, it is what it is. I just feel like somewhere in between is the truth. And I feel like something to some degree went like this of, we're not going to let her know any details, almost like we're going to take care of it for you. We're going to take care of it for you. Probably some details were thrown out there. Probably Charlie made an offhanded joke of like, well, yeah, I tried to hire a hitman. There's some stuff done along the way like that. I don't see why other people would have a motivation to lie about some things. I just don't. I think the family was very involved in each other's business, especially with hers and the kids and whatnot, and trying to manipulate and make them do things. I mean, we see all this evidence of Donna with the scenarios she came up with to try and manipulate Dan to get back down to South Florida. That being said, again, at the time of this recording, she's not been charged, none of that. So, time will only tell. Now, I do want to go next and look at her police interview that she did and that dynamic of like how she acted right afterward. Again, this stuff we're watching these last couple of videos, this was, after the fact. So I don't expect people to be a certain level of emotional after the fact, like years later. Of course, it's going to be emotional and depending on what's going on the stand, but they've had time to process this type of stuff. However, with her, there's like this lack of emotion where it's just like, this is like extreme. But again, with her, I'm not expecting tears on the stand. She was going through a divorce, right? It would almost be weirder to me if she got a certain level of emotional up there, like she was trying to prove something. So anyways, what are your thoughts? What part of the testimony did you like the most? I just loved, again, I love watching her get grilled by another attorney. I think it's fascinating. And I'll give her this. I think she's very good on the stand. I think she is very good at protecting her best interest. So anyways, that's it. If you're still watching, I do appreciate you watching the entire thing. Thank you very much. Roscoe says thank you. He says, drop some sofas down in the sofa section for him. It's no longer the comment section. It's Roscoe's sofa section. And until we meander our way on down to that sofa to talk to y'all down there, we'll see y'all soon.